This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Ash, and Team Valor. We pick up with Team Scrapnik as the sun rises on Lost Jungle. Due to needing repairs, this trio had departed later than the other teams, putting them somewhat behind schedule, though this delay had not been entirely deleterious, as during that time, Sigma had built them several upgrades, which he and Tails had designed in light of Sonic's words regarding needing to be at their best for this mission. Most notable of these is Scrap's new arm, which has taken the form of a spiked mace, increasing his combat and excavation power exponentially, also proving quite useful here, as it allows them to clear a path through the forested underbrush. As for Sigma and Mecha, their augmentations are less obvious, though the pair are certain they will come in handy when it comes time to confront the Metal Commander. At least, Mecha wants to be certain, as though he has not told his friends about this, during the invasion he'd experienced the strangest flashes of envy, like he had wished it was him rather than his brother standing at the Doctor's side. Logically, he knows this is ridiculous, as he is happy with his life, and has long since moved on from his devotion to Eggman, though he cannot help but fear that these feelings will re-emerge during their next confrontation. As a result, he remains mostly silent as he and his teammates press forward, not even reacting when a giant alligator attempts to consume the three of them, with the only thing pulling him from his reverie being a cry for help from somewhere in the distance. This at last attracts the attention of the kind-hearted android, with it being plain to see that his comrades also want to help, resulting in them wordlessly changing headings as they move in the direction of the scream. A moment later, the trio burst through the canopy, arriving near a tranquil-looking lake, where a group of Eggman robots are attacking a large purple cat and his tailed frog companion. Leaping into action, Mecha begins spin dashing into the villains, making sure not to damage them with his blades, instead putting his effort into tripping them so they cannot cause further trouble. Likewise, Scrap takes pains to pull his punches, clashing his mace against the Egg Knight's lances and only striking hard enough to disable their foes, while Sigma takes to the air and shoulder charges the Egg Flappers hovering above the group. Despite their somewhat rusty appearance, Team Scrapnik quickly show themselves to be a well-oiled machine when it comes to teamwork, with this proving too much for their less advanced peers. Even the cat and frog do their part to help out, with the former using his fishing rod as a weapon, while the latter pounces onto the evil robots' faces, temporarily blinding them. Unfortunately, while well-intentioned, this plays right into their enemy's hands, as it seems they are here for the frog, meaning that when he lands on one of the flappers, the aerial bot simply takes flight, registering this as a successfully completed objective. In a turn of heartbreak, the cat calls out for his friend, who he names Froggy, pleading for him to come back, and moaning something about not again, though it seems it is already too late, as the undefeated members of the Eggman Strike Force have begun their retreat, leaving Team Scrapnik, the cat, and their vanquished allies behind. Flopping down despondently onto a log, the cat once more whimpers for Froggy to come back, while in a kind tone, Sigma expresses his team's deepest sympathies, as they all know what it is like to lose a friend to the clutches of Dr. Eggman. Through this conversation, the team learn not only that the purple feline is named Big, but also that Froggy was once before abducted by the Eggman Empire during the Chaos incident, with his kidnapper being an E-series just like Sigma. This is deeply troubling to hear, since none of the Scrapniks can fathom what reason the Doctor would have for being so invested in the capture of a simple frog, though there are two things of which they are certain. 1. It cannot be good, and 2. Rescuing Froggy has just become a primary objective, both to thwart their evil creator and to help their new friend. At this news, Big's eyes light up as he thanks the trio, calling them nice robots, with this warming the group's mechanical hearts as they start moving once again, their new mission driving them forward as the outline of Rail Canyon appears on the horizon. Soon, it will be time to destroy that battleship and confront the Metal Commander again. They just hope their friends are having as easy a time as they are. Omega is furious. How could he not be when he's been given an assignment fit for a basic egg pawn? Nonetheless, he descends to the surface on the Metal Commander's orders to search the wreckage of the downed ship for any signs of survivors, with it being slow, tedious work to sift through the mounds of twisted metal for something he knows he will not find. After all, few aside from himself have ever survived the Commander's wrath. However, it seems the E-series may have underestimated the organics, as when he steps inside one of the few intact cabins that his quarry might have used as a refuge, he hears the door slam shut behind him, followed by the turning of the locking wheel, evidently meant to trap him inside. While this might have been sufficient to imprison a run-of-the-mill machine, he is superior, and so simply tears the hatch from its hinges, revealing the female bat organic, who is among the enemies he is meant to terminate. With a deep sigh, Rouge huffs that she hates Eggman robots, as she begins fleeing into the air, while to her surprise, the big red Rust Bucket seems to agree, with him calling his fellow robots worthless consumer models. Briefly, Rouge wonders why the robot would agree with her, but right now, this is hardly her biggest concern, as he's just opened fire upon her, with a wily treasure hunter having to dive and weave to avoid being shredded by machine gun bullets while she waits for her backup to arrive. Thankfully, it is not a long wait, as a moment later Amy appears, leaping out from a pile of debris and bringing her hammer down on the android's flat yellow head, momentarily blinding him as his face is temporarily buried in his torso. Though this this does not stop Omega, who simply fires wildly into the air, having no compunction about hitting anyone or anything that might be in the way. Seeing this, the two members of Team Dark fall back, with the Bat asking Amy if she managed to find a safe place for Shadow, to which the Pink Hedgehog nods, stating that he's resting in one of the other rooms. However, this claim is almost immediately disproven, as a Chaos Spear whizzes through the air to strike Omega, with the two women in the android looking up to see a wounded but battle-ready Shadow standing on an outcropping made of broken metal. Urgently, his allies tell him to go rest since he's still not fully recovered from his battle with the Metal Commander, let alone the emergency Chaos Controller used to save them, though in his usual obstinate way, the black and red Hedgehog doesn't listen, instead blasting Omega a few more times, then dashing out of the way when the hail of bullets are turned on him. Figuring that there's no point arguing, Amy and Rouge instead make the most of this diversion, looping back and using a combo move to bowl Omega over and put an end to his rampage. Joining them a moment later, Shadow asks if they want him to finish this bucket of bolts off, though with a shake of her head, Amy says that maybe they can convince him to join them, since she's seen an E-Series turn its back on Eggman before. Looking intrigued, Rouge agrees that it's worth a shot, relaying what Omega had said earlier about his own dislike for other Eggman robots, with Amy beaming that maybe it's a sign he's ready to become a good guy. Unfortunately, they are not so lucky, with Omega expressing his contempt for his captors, though it is not as great as his loathing for the Metal Commander, with him explaining his hatred for his superior and his desire to depose him. Though the idea of someone as trigger-happy as Omega being at Eggman's side is almost as unappealing as Metal being there, Team Dark cannot deny that the enemy of their enemy is their friend, with Rouge proposing a temporary alliance until they have returned Metal to his right mind, as it furthers all their agendas. Begrudgingly, Shadow and Omega both agree, with the Bat and Hedgehog getting to work formulating a new plan based on Omega's information, such as the best way to infiltrate the Bullet Station base, and the details surrounding the final fortress, which up until that point had only been speculation based on external images. However, one member of the team remains notably quiet during this planning, that being Amy, with her not saying a word even as they prepare to move out and rendezvous with their other allies at Rail Canyon. Curiously, Rouge asks her what's the matter, with the Pink Hedgehog replying that it's something Omega said. He's tried to attack the Metal Commander before and failed repeatedly, but in spite of that, the Blue Bot has never finished him off, whereas he showed no hesitation blowing up a whole ship of allies to get them. Furrowing his brow, Shadow agrees that this is definitely strange, though with a surprising smile, Amy retorts that actually it makes perfect sense, recounting the story she'd alluded to earlier regarding a free-world E-Series and the deep friendship Gamma and Metal had struck up. So, maybe the reason the Metal Commander keeps sparing Omega is because he reminds him of Gamma, which would mean the good Metal might be trying to reassert himself. And if that's the case, then it's only a matter of time before he succeeds, as she's never met anyone with more of an iron will. In the depths of his prison, Metal awakens once again, having spent the last 24 hours painfully reconstructing his consciousness. This is the price he must pay every day for his failure, as in spite of his antipathy towards him, Eggman will not allow his creation to die. While this could be attributed to another part of the prison's torment, making him slowly rebuild himself only to be torn apart day after day, Metal has a theory of his own, that the Doctor cannot afford to have him truly be erased, otherwise he simply would have deleted him during the reprogramming, rather than compartmentalizing his consciousness in a corner of his own mind. This is an immensely hopeful prospect, as if his creator is still using his life data, so to speak, then that means the link between this manifestation of Metal and his body still exists, and logically speaking, if this is true, then he may yet be able to make this terrible situation right. This belief has served as powerful fuel for Metal every day, with today being no different, as he once more blasts through his cell door and begins his sprint towards freedom. Like always, he is presented with egg pawns meant to stop him and displays designed to cause him distress, though today a new sequence has been added to the tableau, a memory of Amy Rose speaking with the Metal Commander, appealing to their friendship, only for the Heartless Machine to grab her by the throat. This sight sickens Metal, with him unintentionally powering up into overdrive and cleaving a path through the next wave of bots in his fury. This time his lookalike has gone too far, and he will make both it and Eggman pay. Unfortunately, before he can enact his vengeance, he must first survive, as a moment later, the drawback of overdrive kicks in, immobilizing the Blue Bot, and sending him crashing to the ground. Spotting this weakness, his jailers begin closing in, ready to end things once again. That is until a hail of bullets from above cause them all to explode, while leaving Metal uninjured. Looking up, the Blue Bot is shocked to see that his savior is none other than Gamma, as the red robot descends on his jet booster to land in front of his friend. around. In his modulated mechanical voice, Gamma apologizes for taking so long to find Metal, revealing that during the reprogramming, he hid his code in his friend's cage to avoid deletion, since he knew the Doctor would be too eager to unleash his new servant on his enemies to take the time and clear that. This hypothesis fortunately proved correct, allowing him to reintegrate himself and begin freely searching their shared neural network, though in order to avoid detection, he's been forced to use backdoors and other suboptimal routes. Taking the E-Series' outstretched hand and rising to his feet, Metal tells his comrade that he has no reason to apologize, expressing gratitude that he's here at all, though with something like a smile to his tone, Gamma replies that he did state his intent to repay his help back on the egg carrier, with this allowing him to do so at last. By now, more Eggman robots have converged on them, though feeling bolstered by the presence of his friend, Metal goes back to back with Gamma, allowing the pair of green-eyed androids to fight without worry knowing that the other has them covered. When this horde is defeated, the duo then move on, with it being plain to see that in his hubris, the Doctor failed to consider a world in which a friend would come to help Metal, as none of the groups who attempt to subdue the escapees are capable of standing up to a pair who fight with trust and respect for one another. As a result, it is not long before they reach the access point Gamma used to get in, with the E-Series laying down suppressing fire as Metal departs first, immensely relieved to be free of his prison. A moment later, the red robot joins him in the virtual nether space between programs, sealing the door after him and preventing pursuit, while with mechanical efficiency, Metal begins scanning the pathways that lay ahead of him. Curiously, Gamma asks what his friend is looking for, to which Metal simply replies that escape was only the first step. Now he must find where the Metal Commander program is located, so he can oust the malevolent malware and regain control of his body, once and for all. The sun hangs low over Rail Canyon as Team Sonic make their grinding descent. It has been a long road, though thankfully they are almost at the end. All they have to do is make it through that base before the Egg Fleet arrives, and they should be able to stop that giant warship from launching. Now that they are here, Sonic understands why Shadow spoke of it with such concern, as it seems to take up the entirety of the canyon floor below them. Briefly, the Blue Blur considers simply dropping down onto the deck and smashing everything in sight, though he quickly reconsiders, as that would just alert every robot in the canyon to their presence, and if the battle on Scrapnik Island taught them anything, it's that they are not invincible, and cannot take on the entire Eggman Empire by themselves. This truth weighs heavily on Sonic, as it feels like yet another failure on his part. If he'd just been faster or stronger, maybe he could have taken that ship down by himself, rather than dragged his friends into this. Maybe he could have saved Metal, and none of this would have happened. Seeing the sudden onset of ennui on Sonic's face, Tails reaches out a hand to comfort his best friend, though unfortunately at that moment their rails diverge, with his and Knuckles looping upwards while Sonic's continues straight down, putting him out of reach for the time being. Truthfully, the Fox Boy is worried about Sonic, as he's barely been able to sit still since they left Angel Island, not even really resting when they'd been forced to stop after more than 24 hours of running. While this sort of frenetic energy is not uncommon for Sonic, it is usually fueled by excitement and an infectious zeal for life. But this is different. Tails has never seen Sonic like this before, with the closest case being when they all had to pull together to stop the Ark from falling. Though even then he'd believed the Hedgehog's smiles were genuine. Now, he's not so sure. Nonetheless, he has no intention to abandon his best friend in his hour of need, and so as the three rails link up once again, Tails gives him a smile, an unspoken promise to support the Hedgehog through whatever's bothering him. Speaking of support, a moment later a new group come grinding into view atop an adjacent set of rails, with that being Team Scrapnik. Spotting their allies, Sonic calls out to them, with the robots returning the gesture, either vocally, or in Scrap's case with a hand signal. This at last is some good news, as from the looks of things, their rails are about to end, and there is a large mass of robots waiting for them at the bottom, with a few of the models armed with blasters even opening fire, and forcing them to leap between railings. As the most combat-oriented members of their group, Knuckles and Scrap take this as their cue, speeding up and touching down before the other heroes, as they begin to wail on the enemy machine. A moment later, they are joined by Sonic, Tails, Mecha, and Sigma, who promptly join the fray, with the group of 6 proving more than capable of clearing a path. When this is done, they begin their descent, dropping through a grate and landing on some sort of supply train that is bringing materials down into the canyon. Being familiar with how Eggman operates, the Scrapniks tell their organic companions that this should take them right to the giant warship, so for now, they should just lie low and try not to draw attention to themselves. From the look on Sonic's face, it is plain to see that he does not relish the idea of being passive, even if it is for the sake of their mission, though seeing the androids point, he concedes, and joins them in hunkering down as the train winds deeper and deeper into the facility and towards their ultimate goal. Meanwhile, out in the open, a shadow falls over Rail Canyon, cast by the arrival of the Egg Fleet, which thanks to the efficiency of its commander, is almost a day ahead of schedule. As he surveys the area with the Doctor by his side, the Metal Commander cannot help but experience a sense of pride, since now at last they can launch the final fortress. Now at last the Eggman Empire will assume its rightful place as rulers of this world, with him as its loyal guardian, ready to destroy any and all who oppose his master's will, starting with that vermin Sonic and his friends. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.